How you doing? I'm Dana Jackson. I am the radio production teacher here at Jack Yates High School School of Communications, and I have a very special guest who dropped by to see me today. We actually interned together at KTSU and did a show together, but she is an SOC graduate.
Why?
Class of '88, a radio veteran and now a television veteran, working on being a television veteran now. I want you to introduce to you my good friend, Miss Shelly Wade.
Hi, everyone.
And Shelly dropped by here. She's in town. She actually works in San Diego now. And she dropped by to take a look at our new digs and our new studio and everything that Jack Yates has become now with our new building. And tell me a little bit about what you think, how it made you feel when you walked in.
I just love it. When I was here, of course, we had, you guys have seen the lion out front in the cage. And so that was always the lion I was used to. So it takes some getting used to the new lion with the, what is it, the cement lion now? Takes me some getting used to it, but it's so beautiful. I mean, the students sitting here, I just feel like your studios and your facilities are so state of the art. I don't know if you guys appreciate it or not, but it's amazing. And I wish that when I was here, we had the music production class. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. So I just love it. Everything is gorgeous, and I can't wait to see what they do with the older part, of the campus.
Right, yeah. Right. So how has the School of Communications helped you in your career? Because you're working on how many years now in the business?
Yeah, 25. Well, professionally, getting paid for it.
Yeah, 25. When did you know that you wanted to actually be in radio?
I grew up wanting to be a Grammy Award-winning singer.
Right.
And Dana, you sing yourself.
Right.
And since I was in elementary school, I just thought I would be a Grammy Award-winning singer. And when I say Grammy Award-winning because when you win the Grammy, you're at the top of your game. And so I didn't want to just be a singer. I wanted to be a Grammy Award-winning singer. So I grew up thinking that. And even out of high school, when I graduated from Yates, I thought I was going to move to New York City and sing on Broadway. But my mom was like, no, you're going to college, But I did major in, when I was here at Yates, I was in the Magnet School of Communications. We learned what you guys are learning, radio and TV and photography and all that. Not music production, which would have been awesome, but all of the other stuff we learned. And that was the first inkling that I got that you could actually pursue this as a career. But I hadn't yet decided that I wanted to, because I still wanted to sing. Not that you can't do both, because you proved that you can do both, right. But I wanted to go off and sing. But since my mom was like, you're going to go to school and, to college, I decided, okay, what am I going to major in, when I go to college? Oh, well, I'll just major in what I studied in high school. And so I majored in, it depends on what school you go to. Some people call it mass communication, some people call it broadcast, some people call it radio television. So I decided to major in that. And when I started interning at KTSU was when I really got the radio bug.
Where we met.
I was like, oh my God, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And so that was when I got the inkling. But because I was in the School of Communications here at Yates, it gave me the first sign that it could be possible.
Right.
Yeah.
So talk about a little bit about your journey, your first radio job, and how that progressed to you being in San Diego on radio and television now.
Do you want the long story or the short story?
We got time. We got nothing but time. Come on.
The long story is that at some point I had, while I was in college, I'd become a nanny as well, just trying to I just figure out what I wanted to do with my life. So the little girl I was taking care of, her aunt knew that I was working at KTSU, and she knew that I had goals and dreams of being on the radio. And so she worked at what you guys know as 102 Jams. Magic 102 now. Back then it was 102 Jams.
Right.
She worked there, but not on air. She was in, you remember Tracy McLemore?
Yeah.
Who is also a Yates graduate, by the way.
Yeah.
Tracy, she worked in the sales department. And so she was in charge of hiring someone to temporarily fill in for the receptionist while she was on maternity leave in that summer, during the summer. So it was a three months during the summer, which worked out perfectly for me because it was the 3 months that I was out of school for, I wasn't taking summer school in college. So she was like, I can't get you a job on the radio. However, I can get you your foot in the door. And so that's a good lesson, guys. If you decide that you want to do radio or TV, a good lesson is always good to get your foot in the door. A lot of people think that you graduate, you get your college degree, you're automatically getting a job. Not, no, it doesn't work like that. You have to really network. And so when you're interning, I always say internships are the best way to go.
Right.
Because you intern and then the people, the powers that be, they see that you're a hard worker, you're a go-getter. And so when it comes time to hire someone, they are more likely to hire you than the person that just has a degree that they don't know.
Right.
So I got my foot in the door.
I didn't know that's how you got your foot in the door. I didn't know that.
As the receptionist for the summer.
Wow.
So again, I had 3 months to try to get my job on the radio. It was, not likely that it was going to happen, but I was going to try.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you remember Ron Atkins or not.
Yeah.
He was probably, was he gone by the time you got there?
He was gone by the time I got there, because when I got there, Carl Connor was there.
Yeah, so Ron Atkins was there before he was.
Yeah.
And so program directors that are, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, if you're learning, program directors at radio stations are basically the boss of people on air. So the program director at the time, Ron Atkins, he would come in and, check his messages. What are my messages? I'm like, here you go, Mr. Atkins. By the way, I want to be on the radio. And he'd be like, he didn't care, because it's like, Houston is a really big deal. It's a big city in by any standards, but especially in radio. Mm-hmm. And so people from all over the country would want to work on the radio in Houston. And so here I am, a college student, saying I want to be on the air. He's like, so. And so every time he would come in, I'm like, hey, just a reminder, I want to be on the radio. And he just did not care. But I was like, I work at my college radio station, didn't care. So great stroke of luck. Bill Travis, who is the production director,
good old
and those
Bill
are the
Travis.
People. Good old Bill, we love him.
Yeah.
He's the production director at Magic 102, and production directors just basically they make sure that the commercials are produced and they get on the radio, and that's very important because the commercials are the things that keep radio in business because they're making the station's money. So the production director, every time he had a lunch break, he would come and sit in the lobby where I was answering the lines. And he just was trying to take a break, because when you're stuck in the studio, if you guys are stuck in the studio all the time, you get tired of it. You got to take a break sometimes. So he would come out of his studio and just sit in the front with me in the lobby and just talk. And he'd be like, hey, so what are your goals? I know you're a college student. What are your goals? I'm like, I want to be on the radio. I work at my college radio station, but Ron Atkins doesn't care. Right. And so Bill Travis would be like, well, okay, I'll tell you what. When you get a break, whether you have a 15-minute break or a lunch break, come back to my studio. It was not just that. He said it was even smarter than that. Come back to my studio and clean it. And I'll teach you what you need to know. Right?
Wait till I see him.
So,
ask him that.
So I would go back and make sure everything was orderly in his studio, and that he would teach me what to do. And he would sometimes sit me in front of the mic and have me voice
stuff, yeah.
Drops or sweepers. And so when you guys hear, if you're listening to 97.9 The Box, you hear somebody, instead of the person that's on air, the DJ, you'll hear someone go, like Magic 102 or something. Those are drops. Those are the identifying, the things that identify what station you're listening to. Right. And so I did a few of those, and Ron Atkins, the program director, the boss, heard some of those on air. He didn't know who it was. And he calls Bill Travis, the production director, and he goes, hey, Bill, who is that lady I just heard on the radio? And he was like, that's Shelly. She's in, the receptionist. She's been telling you she wants to be on the radio. And so he hangs up the phone with Bill, and he calls me because he liked my voice. So he calls me and he goes, hey, I heard you on the radio. I love how you sound. Give me some audio how you would sound on air. Of course, I've only worked, at KTSU,
right.
which is the college station, which is most of the time completely different from what you're going to be doing when you're actually on a real radio. Not that KTSU is not, but a professional radio station.
Commercial radio.
Commercial radio where you're getting paid for it. Because at KTSU, I wasn't getting paid.
Neither one of us.
So all I know is how to do is the college. So I gave him my college stuff, and he goes, no, that's not how you're going to sound on my station. I want to know how you're going to sound on my station. Of course, I didn't know because I've never done that before. I'm just a student. And so I tell Bill, who had by that time become a mentor for me, giving me all that advice. And I was like, hey, listen, he wants to know how I'm going to sound, and I don't know what to do. Bill sits me in front of the mic. He writes down everything he wants me to say. I read the paper, and then he puts music behind it.
He put it behind, yeah. So he helped you do your first air check.
Yeah, and I didn't really do an actual show. I just read what Bill told me to do. And so I did it. And then I turned that audio in to Ron, and he loved it, and he put me on air that weekend. And that was really amazing because that was my final week as a receptionist. So I had 3 months to get myself on the air, and it happened.
You did it in the last week.
In the last week.
Wow.
And so that's how I got my start in radio.
And you stayed at 97.9 The Box for?
I started at 102.
Oh, you started at 102. That's right.
I started at 102, and I was there for 6 months. And then Robert Scorpio, another guy who used to be a program director, he was at The Box. He was the first program director of 97.9 The Box. It was when I started working at The Box, it was a brand new radio station. Yeah. I know you guys grew up. It's been here since you grew up. But when I started working there, it was a brand new station. And so Robert Scorpio was the first program director of that station. And he used to also be on air. And he would be doing club broadcasts. And when I was on 102, they started me overnights and on the weekends, you know, in those shifts that, you know, the people nobody wanted to do. And since I was a college student, I didn't care. I would do it because I just wanted to be on the radio. And so Robert Scorpio, who worked at The Box, would be, you know, because the program directors will monitor other stations, listen to other stations just to see what they're doing so they'll know what the competition's doing. Right. So he would be listening to 102 and he would hear me on the radio after his club broadcast. And he liked me. He liked, you know, my sound. And so he got in touch with Duran, who worked at KT. You remember Duran from KTSU? No, Duran worked at The Box, but he was a product of KTSU. Okay, no. So Robert knew that Duran knew the people at KTSU. So Duran, you know, used his contacts to get in touch with me to let me know that Robert Scorpio from The Box is interested in you working for him at his station. And I was kind of like, what? I just started. I didn't want to my boss to hear that I'm fraternizing with the enemy.
At that time, Magic and The Box
were right now they're sister stations.
Yeah,
and
we basically
mean sister stations owned by the same company in the same office.
Right.
But at the time we weren't, and we were enemies. And we used to, the radio wars aren't like now, like they used to be then. When you were enemies, you were all enemies. On war.
It was 102 Jams and 97.9 The Box, the new kid on the block.
The new kid on the block, and they were trying to copy, you know, anyway, whatever. But we would do things, and we were in radio wars, we would do things like 102 would have a movie premiere, and we would sneak into the restroom and put 97.9 The Box toilet paper in there so everybody would see our stuff, you know, full on war. And so I'm like, I don't want my boss to know I'm talking to somebody from the enemy station. So I just ignored it. They were like, you know, and then finally Robert reached out, you know, got in touch with me, and I was like, hi, you know, we talked, and he was like, hey, I'd like to, you know, after the holidays, because it was around Christmas time at that time, he's like, after the holidays, I would love to, you know, meet up with you, and, you know, so we could talk about you possibly working for me. I'm like, okay. He was like, call me. I'm like, okay. Never called. And then he reached back out to me after the new year, probably in January. He was like, hey, I never heard from you. I was like, oh, okay. You know? And so we set up a meeting finally. I remember at the time the Box was over at Richmond and Hillcroft. Right. And we set up a meeting at the diner across the street from it. So I had a meeting with him. And he was telling me what he would offer me. He would offer me, it would still be part-time, but it would be daytime hours. So I would be, you know, more people would hear me, and I would make a little more money. But I was a kid growing up listening to 102. So I wanted to stay on the station I grew up listening to. And again, 102 wasn't the older station at the time. It was a hip hop station. Yeah. And I was, you know, super young. And so I wanted to work at the station I grew up listening to. And I didn't want to leave, but Bill, who had become a mentor, said, you know, listen, well, what you can do is you can ask Ron if he can give you better hours and more money. Because at that time, I just wanted more. Yeah. You know how it is. You just want more. You don't want to stay static at the same place, not accomplishing more. Right. And so I went to Ron, said, hey, this other station's offering me, you know, our competition's offering me a better time slot, more money. And I'm thinking he's going to come out and give me all that. And he says, oh, if I were you, I'd take it. I was like, oh, you know, it's like he didn't care, right? And so I went to Bill all sad. It was Bill, he told me to take it. He was like, oh, and Bill was really sad. And I cleaned out my locker and accepted the other job. And that's when I went to the Box. And so I was at 102 for 6 months. And then I went to the Box in February, that next February. So I hadn't even been in radio for a year before I moved to my next station. And then literally from February, to April, A couple months later, they offered me the full-time job as midday host. Middays 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. most stations.
Most stations, yeah.
So I got my first full-time job on the radio before, not even a year into the business. And so I stayed at the box for 9 years. I did middays for the first 6 years. And then I went to co-host the morning show, first with Robert Scorpio and Jimbo. And I did that. And then when Scorpio left and went to LA, Matt Hatter came from the afternoons and came on in the mornings, and we all hosted the morning show together.
But what's ironic about all of that is Magic and the box ended up being sister stations at the end of the.
And it was weird because we were such enemies at first, and then being owned by the same company and having to be in the same office, it took us a long time to really like each other and to get along. It was like we would be walking down the halls and people would be rolling their eyes. It's really petty, petty stuff. Yeah. But you know, we eventually got over it. So.
Right. So from there, you went to New York.
New York, because again, like I said, after high school, my dream was always to live in New York because you know it's the big city of dreams. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
Exactly.
And so I just always wanted to live in New York, even whether it was going to be singing or radio. I wanted to live in New York, and so I would periodically always send audition tapes. We call them air checks. I would send the audition tapes to, you know, different radio stations in New York. The whole time, very happy working here because this is my hometown. My family, all my friends are here. I was not unhappy working here, but I had to try to achieve my dreams.
Right.
So I would send audition tapes, and I did that for years. And finally, a station called me back. I mean, they would call me back and say, "You sound great. We don't have openings." But finally, a station called me back and say, "Hey, we have an opening."
That was Z100, right?
Yeah, it was Z100 New York, which is a pop station. It's like KRBE here, 104.3. So it's a pop station. So I went from a hip hop station to a pop station, and I was able. I feel like I love all kinds of music, so I was able to do that. I don't really like to limit myself, you know. So I did that. It's really the biggest pop radio station in the world.
Yeah.
And it was really phenomenal having that experience. I was there on air for 12 years, and I did that. People like Lady Gaga and, you know, people like that tell me they grew up listening to me, you know. And so it was really an amazing experience. Just experiences that I know a lot of people will never have, you know, while I was in New York. It was just really amazing. You know?
Right.
I would go back there if the opportunity were right, but you know, right now it's not a good time. But it was, wow, I feel like the highlight of my radio career. Yeah.
So now you're in San Diego.
Now I'm in SoCal, Southern California, yes.
Right.
I'm full-time on air on a station called Star 94.1 in San Diego, and I'm part-time on a station in Los Angeles called 104.3 My FM. And Los Angeles and San Diego are 2 hours apart. So you can drive up or take the train along the coast, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It's just
now,
beautiful.
do you do this every day? Both stations every day?
No. Oh, no. I do the station in San Diego every day, and I do the LA station on the weekends, but I record that. Because I want a life.
Right.
I don't go to LA
in these days, technology allows it.
Allows me to record that.
You don't have to do what Tom Joyner did back in the day and actually fly from Dallas to Chicago every day.
I don't want to do that.
No.
I mean, I could if I wanted to go to LA every weekend and do my show, but I don't want to do that.
Okay.
I go to LA, I do also a lot of TV appearances. And so I go to LA for TV work. But just to go there to do my radio show, no, because I want a life.
You don't have to.
I want a life.
Right.
And I don't have to.
Right. Now let's get back to Jack Yates, since we've talked a lot about your career. Yeah, JY High, Third Ward High. Talk about school spirit and how the tradition of Jack Yates Lions has been phenomenal over the years, and your experience, and even now. It's something about Third Ward and pride about going to Jack Yates High School.
Well, listen, Yates was one of I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but Yates was one of only 3 schools in Houston that Black people could attend. Back when my mom also graduated from Yates, which is why we all wanted to go to Yates, me and my siblings. It's a really historic school, and it's got a lot of history, and people have pride in this school. I mean, it just never dies, you know?
No.
It never dies, and I'm very proud to say that I am a product of Jack Yates High School. We all were so passionate about Yates and going here because my mom went here, that even when my family, when I was in, because we used to live actually just around the corner, you guys know where, right across, there are now the TSU dorms, but when I was a kid, they were called the Rosewood Apartments, I believe.
Yeah.
Right across from Frenchie's. So we grew up there. And when I was in the 5th grade, I used to go to Lockhart when it was at the original location on Southmore. When I was in the 5th grade, we moved to South Park, you know?
Right.
And we were zoned to go to South Park schools, but we didn't want to go to
Well,
South Park
that's
schools.
where I met your brother, Stacy.
Yeah, my brother used to play basketball for Yates, and they won the championship and everything.
Oh, yeah, they were phenomenal back in the day.
My brother's 6'6", he's a big guy.
I used to watch your brother playing at Law Park every day. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and so we were supposed to go to Jones, where you went.
Mm-hmm. That's not funny.
We were supposed to go there. We were supposed to go, you know, but we didn't want to go to those schools. And so we were like, we want to go where my mom went. So we went to Ryan and we went to Yates because my mom went to those schools. Mm-hmm. And it's just a lot of pride, you know. And so even when, you know, over the summer when I was here and, you know, we found out that they were going to be tearing down the school, you know, the old part of the school, we all came. You know, my mom even came, you know, and took all pictures and videos. And so it's just everyone has pride. It's just, you know, a school with a lot of history and a lot of pride, you know. Okay.
One last question, or no, not question, but actually one last request. And that is, if talking to our Jack Yates Lines and our SOC students, and any of our students who may be watching this, do you have any last words or bit of advice for them?
I say this is a really unique opportunity. I don't know if you guys are passionate about this, and you know, just because you're in, I don't know, when I was in the School of Communications, it was like a separate, you know, we took our classes, regular classes like history and math and stuff with, you know, the rest of the school. But, you know, the School of Communications, there were, you know, the rest of the school could not take classes. You had to be in the magnet school of communications. And it's a great opportunity. So the people who were in the magnet school were passionate about doing radio and TV. So I don't know if you guys are doing it because it's something you have to do or you want to do, but really if you're interested in radio and TV, you have a really unique opportunity to really learn this. And listen, I'm blown away at the equipment. You guys may be used to it because you're here every day, but we didn't have this kind of innovation and technology when I was here. And so I would say just really don't take it for granted, appreciate it and learn all you can. So because if you're at all interested in radio or TV or anything else that you learn here, this is a really great jumping off ground. It's a really great start to help you get your foundation. It's really unique. Most schools don't have this kind of opportunity. So take it in and appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much, Shelly Wade.
Thank
Appreciate
you
talking to our students. Thank you for your time. And that's all the time we have for today. So we're going to wrap it up.
Thanks,
and we'll
guys.
see you next time. And cut.